Today I'm at the Motor Expo. It's a bit different this year after COVID, the motor show which was delayed and then put on a couple of months late, and the Motor Expo which has managed to stay to its original date. They're a little bit different. There isn't quite the razzmatazz and the pump that you would expect of these shows, and the international cars and visitors and things are missing. But the show is really good. They've really pulled it all together. All the exhibitors are here, all the car OEMs are here, so the halls are full. They're pumping, there's a lot to see, and particularly with the Motor Expo you get that real edge of motorsport and performance cars over what the motor show do. The Motor Expo have always focused on having a zone for high performance cars, for tuned modified cars, for race cars, and that's still here, and that's as good as ever, and there's some really nice things to look out for here. There's a bunch of classic Skylines which look amazing. There's a brand new R35 that brings that genre up to date, and that's in Liberty Walk kit and wrapped up. There's a whole little section of 90s Honda Civics, all the different styles and shapes, cars that people really love here, and that's really nice to look at. And there's quite a few race cars. There's even a Formula One show car here. It's the Alfa Romeo Formula One show car, which has been brought in by Singh because its connection with Kimi Räikkönen, who drives for the Alfa Romeo team, and he's also the ambassador for their car program. So that's here as well. And if you look just behind me, there's Ford Focus touring car, and that runs in TSS, and that won the touring car championship this year. In fact, it won all the races, so it's got all its trophies proudly on the roof. So the show is like a little bit smaller, a little bit more compact, but there's still a really buzz. There's a lot for car enthusiasts. There's a lot of car culture here, a lot of performance cars, race cars, things to really look at and really enjoy, aside from all the production cars, of course. Around me here you can see an exhibition of 8 Hondas that the organisers have put in one corner of the hall, and it's really cool. It's mostly Civics, but there's a CRZ behind me, there's an S2000 on my right here, there's an Integra here, and this is really the cool age of Honda, the 90s, when they turned from just being a mass production brand that you bought to get you from A to B, to a car that people really wanted to own and really admired. In the 90s, Honda were just banging out the innovation, they were banging out the technology, the styling was cool, they were winning in Formula One, they're winning across touring cars and other forms of motorsport, and they really turned into a brand that people really wanted to buy, really wanted to own. So this week, people are coming to the show, they're walking around looking at the production cars, shall I buy this, shall I put a deposit on this? Then they come down here, take a look at these in the corner, and they remember these cars. Back in the day, they either wanted to buy these cars, they either owned them or they desired them, so they all make a real connection with people coming to this show. And these cars are absolutely beautiful. They have really carefully chosen 8 cars that are absolutely perfect. The cars are immaculate and beautiful, and they're a great reminder for Honda's real golden age. It wouldn't be the Motor Expo or indeed any motor show in Thailand if there wasn't some crazy and far out stuff. And in that respect, the Motor Expo is still the old Motor Expo we know. There's plenty of crazy stuff here. This Toyota is huge. It absolutely towers over you. There's a Jeep a few cars down which is equally as big and in your face. So crazy stuff, the far out stuff, it's still alive and well. We might be in this new post-COVID era, but the Motor Expo is still the Motor Expo in that respect. This car behind me, this Ford Focus, it's the only Focus that races in Thailand, and it's just won the Thailand Touring Car Championship. That was a pretty small championship this year. It was 2 rounds with 4 races. So it's basically 1 round, 2 races, a fortnight later, another round with 2 races. So 4 races in total. It won 4 out of 4. It swept up the championship. It was a pretty small field this year. With COVID, the numbers have been struggling a little bit, and touring car is going through a dip. But small numbers, there's still some pretty competitive cars out there. So it got the job done, it won the championship, it's put its name into the record books, the Thai Motorsport record books, as winning the Thailand Touring Car Championship, which is a prestigious prize to win. And now it's here at the Motor Expo on show for people to look at and see its exploits and see what it did. When it comes to crazy far out car collections in Thailand, there is nothing more far out than the Nong Nooch car collection. And they've come to a motor show, first time I've ever seen them at a motor show, and they've brought 6 of their crazy cars. I mean, this collection is something else. They have loads of trikes, they have snowmobiles, they have stadium super trucks, they just have everything that's completely and wacky and offbeat. And they've brought that theme to the show here with 6 cars that are really different, 6 cars that you don't see anywhere else in Thailand. In fact, pretty much most things in the Nong Nooch car collection you'll never see in Thailand or in Asia really. The car behind me here is a Plymouth Prowler. That's incredibly rare in Thailand. I guess this is the only one here, and it's like symbolises the Nong Nooch collection. It's a far out collection of cars. Chrysler built the Plymouth Prowler about 25 years ago, give a halo to the Plymouth brand, which was struggling at that point, which was fading out. In fact, they killed off the brand after a couple of years after this came out, so they put Chrysler badges on the car. So this is a really early one with the Plymouth badging. It's very rare. They didn't build an awful lot because it wasn't a success. People weren't really interested in buying this sort of thing, and it's also totally impractical for the road. You can just use it at the weekend when it's not raining. It's an Ariel, but it's dressed up for off-road, so it's absolutely piled up with strengthening bars and off-road type stuff to really toughen that chassis up. The Ariel Atom is obviously a legend in itself. It's just about pure speed and nothing else. Pure speed and handling, no comfort, no refinement, nothing else. So this is an Ariel Atom that you take up mountains and across riverbeds and through deserts. It's kind of like if Ariel were going to go and do the Dakar, this is what they go and do it with. It's powered by a Honda K24 engine, so everyone who looks at this car is going to be pretty familiar when they look at the engine, but the rest of it just looks completely strange. It could have driven straight out of a Mad Max film. Behind me is another Nong Nooch style car. It's completely rare. I've also never heard of the name. It's called an eRod. It was made in Switzerland in 2017 and it's electric powered, and that's all I know because I've read it on the plate up there. This is a Morgan, comes from 2012. It's got a steel space frame body, a 1.8 litre V-twin engine, and of course a wooden body as you'd expect from Morgan. The company just goes its own way. It's been built in the same style for a century. It doesn't want to change its DNA, and that attracts buyers to it. It always has a healthy waiting list. So this car is pretty crazy, it's pretty eccentric. This is another car that's super rare here. It's a Renault Sport Spider. They built these at the end of the 90s. There's only about 2,000 built, and the idea was give the brand a bit of a halo because it was going through a tough time. This car here, it's called a Zenos E10. It's really typical of the Nong Nooch car collection. It's a tiny volume British like kit sports car brand. Never heard of, never heard this name, and that's really, you walk around the Nong Nooch collection and there's a lot of cars, so you're like, what's this? And you have to read the nameplate and like look on Google and see exactly what it is. So it's absolutely typical, completely unheard of. No one knows this car. For sure it's the only one in Thailand, and that's what's driven the Nong Nooch collection. It's a passion for just going, the collector, he's just gone his own way. He's chosen stuff that he likes. He's chosen stuff that no one else buys. So it really fits in perfectly. I'm on the Singh Motorsport booth, and they always push the boat out for the Motor Expo, and they're really showing how deeply they involved are with Thai motorsport. They've got 3 race cars, they've got a powerboat, they've got simulators with racing games on them, and they've got their junior karting program as well. And that brings me to highlights here, which is on a Plymouth, the Alfa Romeo Formula 1 show car, which is driven by Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi is the ambassador to their karting program, so it kind of halos the effect and shows really just how important this program is to Singh. So the program, the idea with the karting is it gives youngsters a chance to join motorsport, their first foot on the ladder, gives them a push in that direction. Kimi as a brand ambassador is just fantastic. At the end of each year, the youngsters get to meet him. So to tie all that together, they brought an Alfa Romeo Formula 1 show car here. The car next to me is the number 89 Ferrari 488 GT3 that Vorovot and Carlo ran in TSS this year. And really, Singh were the form team this year. They won the first 2 races with their other car, the number 45 with Pitti and Bank, when they were the absolute form team. Next to it is the new Honda Civic touring car they've just built. That debuted in a very raw state in TSS just gone, and next year it'll be looking to push for the championship. Here on the Toyota booth, and this is the Yaris GR. You can't see an awful lot. Just from this angle you can see a wheel and a bit of a bodywork. And this is the homologation version of the Yaris that they use for rallying. So they got 25,000 in 1 year to get homologated to be able to use the rally version. So it's pretty rare. It's the first one in Thailand. One of the popular features of the Motor Expo, and indeed the Motor Show, is that every day car clubs come in and they present their cars. And you can see I'm on one of the upper ramps outside the Challenger Hall, and it's full end to end with Hondas, there's Civics, there's Jazzes, there's you name it here, all presented, all customized, tuned, polished. and it creates a real great association between the world of car culture and the motor show. So all these people who are car buyers, they go into the show, they look at the new cars, they look at all the trade vendors. So it really builds that connection. And over the 10-12 day run of these shows, every day there's different car clubs come in and you get different types of cars. And even for people visiting the show, it creates an extra little thing for them to look at as well.